today's session of Divorce Court. Judy Blocker says Andrew is a coward who ran from the most important responsibility of his life.
When I was about 6 months pregnant, he called me and told me that he wanted a divorce. His son's 2 months old and he hasn't even come to see him. He doesn't know his birthday, he doesn't know how much he weighed when he was born, and he didn't care enough to remember.
Wait a minute.
Now she wants him to pay.
This is a child, a life.
Today, it's the case of Judy Blocker versus Andrew Vickery in this session of Divorce Court.
All rise. Court is now in session. Maybelline Ephraim presiding. You may be seated.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is a matter of Judith Blocker versus Andrew Vickery. Now, Ms. Blocker, the papers I've been given say that you want a divorce after a year and a half of marriage.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, tell me, in a year and a half, what could have gone wrong?
Your Honor, when I was 3 months pregnant, Andrew had to go out to sea, and so he sent me back home to my dad. And then when I was about 6 months pregnant, he called me and told me that this wasn't working out, that he wanted a divorce.
Your Honor,
So wait a minute. So you get married.
Yes.
3 months after you get married, are you pregnant? Or you were 3 months pregnant when he left?
I was 3 months pregnant when he left.
How long had you been married at that point?
About a year.
6 months into your pregnancy, you get a phone call?
Yes, ma'am.
A phone call.
No, Your
Where's your
Honor.
husband at this point?
Out to sea.
So he calls from out there
Yes.
and said, this is not working.
Yes.
What's not working, Mr. Vickery? You're not there.
Your Honor, she went and I called her and she said that I was like, well, I'm fixing to come home. She goes, well, I don't want to come home. She said you have to prove
I don't
yourself.
want you to come home?
Your
No,
Honor,
she
that's
said
not true.
she didn't want to come
All right,
home.
now I heard
No.
you. Let me hear him.
She said she didn't want to come home because I had to prove myself as a father and a husband.
Okay, and what did she tell you had to do?
She just said I had to
She just
send
used that
money
phrase,
to...
you got to prove that you're going to be a good father and a good husband.
No, Your Honor. She said that she wanted to make sure that I was going to send enough money to take care of the child, and then after that, then we'd talk about getting back together.
Is that what you said?
Your Honor, I said that, yes, I did say that he had to
That
prove.
doesn't make sense.
Because,
What do you mean? He had
okay,
to prove that he's going to be a good father and husband.
He was going to get rid of the apartment and move back into the barracks because that was supposedly what his chief told him he had to do. And save money for our son. And he didn't. He went out and spent it on a motorcycle. And every time I asked him, how much money do we have in the bank, Andrew? $97 or
So
$5.
did you move back to Florida with him?
No, ma'am.
Because
he
he didn't
hasn't
have
even
enough money.
seen his son. His son's 2 months old, and he hasn't even come to see him.
How do I know
So
that
when
that's my son?
He's yours, and
Excuse
you
me?
know
How do you know
yours.
that's your son?
Wrong. Your Honor, I never
Wait a
cheated
minute.
on my
Come
husband.
on now, wait.
Never.
Now, what she said to me so far, I have a problem with that and saying I want to make sure that he's going to be a good father and a good husband, and I'm not going back home to him when you're telling your wife that you're about to be returned home from the military. I don't think that that was rational, and that was the way a marriage should be. If you married him, you should have already figured out whether he was a responsible man or not. But you should have gone back to your husband. Now, what you're saying to me, how do I know that's my son? She was 3 months pregnant when you left for the military, right?
It was so close of a time that the very same time that we got together, then she had to get pregnant the very same night.
Well, you know
It
that
was
happens
not
all
the
the time.
same
And
night.
on top of that,
It doesn't take a whole lot of nights to get pregnant.
on top of that, Your
Not
Honor,
even a whole lot of minutes, in case nobody told you.
I know that, Your Honor.
At birth, were you present?
No, ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am.
Did
He
you go
does-
to the hospital then and say, you know what, doctor, I'm not sure if this is my child. Why don't you just do a little blood test real quick so I can be sure? Did you ask for that?
No, Your Honor. I was just getting settled with my job, and they wouldn't let me take off, and I couldn't afford to lose my job. If the child was mine, then I'd have to pay child support.
So all of a
doesn't
sudden
wanna
you want to
pay
say, I'm
child
not sure
support.
that the child is mine anyway.
Because
sorry, Your Honor?
he doesn't want to pay child
There's a
support.
presumption under the law that a married man and a married woman, when the woman gives birth to a child, that is a child of the marriage. Do you have any evidence to the contrary?
No, Your Honor.
So you just want to stand here now and say, I'm not sure it's my child?
Because he doesn't
No,
want
Your
to
Honor.
pay child support.
I was asking for a DNA test, and I asked her if she wanted me to pay child support, and she said no, she just wanted me to sign it over in her name.
Sign what over in her name?
The child. And
No, it doesn't work like that either,
I realize
Mrs.
that,
Vickery.
ma'am. I realize that.
Sign it over to her.
I
We're not
didn't
talking
ask
about
that.
a car
I
and
asked-
signing over title. This is a child, a life.
Your Honor, all I asked was that he give up all his rights. If he wasn't going to pay child support and be a part of his son's life, that I asked him to give up his rights.
No, it doesn't go like that either.
I know, Your Honor, but I was just
If he's the
asking.
father,
Right.
are you sure of that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. If he's the father and he has a responsibility, you can't sign away your son's right to receive support, not your authority.
Right.
You can't do that.
I realize that, ma'am.
All right. Custody of the child is one thing, taking care of the child is another. But I don't understand how, in a year and a half, didn't you know your husband was going to the military?
Yes, ma'am.
And other than the fact that he bought a motorcycle, that's just a terrible financial decision,
Right.
a poor
There's-
financial decision. Other than that, that's why you don't want to go back home to
No,
him?
ma'am. There's other reasons. I had a bear collection and a dog collection that my dad had given me throughout since I was 5 years old. Every time my dad was in the Marines and he'd go out to sea and he would
you're
send me.
familiar,
most of that.
He
wait a
would
minute, so you're
send me
familiar with
bears.
men that go out to
yes,
sea?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And have to go away from home?
Yes, and I wasn't mad because he had to go out to sea. That's not the point. My dad would send me bears from different countries, and if I tried to put them up or something, like I had the doll on the entertainment center, and he's like, "You can't put that doll up there.
No,
it's
that's
staring
wrong.
at me."
That is
yes,
wrong.
you did. And so I said, "Okay." So I put the doll on my side of the bed, and for 2 weeks it was fine there. And then he's like, "You know what? I don't like that doll there either because this is making the room look too girly." And every time I tried to put my bears on the bed, it was like, "No, take those bears down. They look too girly." Then
Your
So
Honor,
you
that
want to
is
get a
wrong.
divorce over the bears on the bed?
No, ma'am. There's
This is-
more to it than that also. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff.
Bottom line is what? Bunch of stuff. Have you
treated
decided
me-
now you're not ready to be married and your daddy took better care of you? Are you sort of spoiled?
I am spoiled, yes.
And daddy took better care of you than you
No,
think
ma'am.
that Mr. Vickery can do?
Andrew did. I will give him credit. He did take care of me, but
Are you
he just
comparing him to
wasn't-
daddy? You didn't buy
No,
enough
ma'am.
dolls and you didn't buy
No.
enough
Your Honor,
bears?
that wasn't it. It was that he wanted to be my dad and not my husband. And
What do you mean by that?
our marriage, the apartment was his. It wasn't ours. It was the money that he brought home was his. He spent it the way he wanted to spend it. It
I
wasn't
spent it the
our
way
money.
it needed to be
So
spent
it wasn't
on bills.
it was a lack of communication and sitting
Yes.
down together to talk
and
about
when
finance.
I sat him down and I said, "Andrew, it's not working." I said, "You have to share with me if you want me to share with you. That's the way it's got to be, or it's not going to work." And he's like,
Your Honor,
"Okay, I'll share with
I
you."
spent the money
and then
to
it
buy
never
her
did.
pants to get a job.
And then he turned
So
around
wait-
and said,
wait a
"Okay,
minute, so
you
your
owe me
complaint is that she won't get a
$80."
job? Is that why you
I
want
got
the
a
marriage
job.
over?
She would not help out with bills. I had to pay for all the bills, and I had to do all the work for the house and all that kind of stuff.
So you think that marriage should be a partnership and sharing in terms of the finances?
Yes, ma'am.
So you willing to share that responsibility?
Yes.
Or it was easier for you to stay at home with your dad because he wouldn't require you to work?
No, I work. Well, I don't work right now. I'm in college, so I can support my son.
So you're going back to school?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're still about what, 19, 18?
I'm 18.
Oh, so that's what this is all about. You're just too young and don't understand what you're doing.
When divorce court returns, will the judge let the divorce continue?
Running away, you got a son that's 2 months old that needs both of you. You really can't resolve this?
If you would like to have the judge hear your case in divorce court, call us toll-free at 1-877-311-2222 or email us at www.divorcecourttv.com. Divorce Court is back in the case of Judy Blocker, who says her husband Andrew abandoned her when she was just 6 months pregnant with their baby.
The solution to issues like this, when you marry and make a commitment, is not just to run away in a year and a half. You haven't given it time.
He doesn't want responsibility for our son. He does. If he wanted responsibility, he would have come and seen him be born.
Wrong.
Yes, you
No,
would
I
have.
had
He
responsibility.
Why
said,
did you
"I'll
go
be there."
to
and
your? Why did you tell her you didn't want to be married? No, he says that when he told you that he was coming home,
Right.
so it was time for you to leave Daddy's comfortable nest. You said, "I'm not going unless I can be sure that you're going to be a good father and a good husband."
Right.
So what I sense from that is that you were a little afraid that he wasn't going to be able to take care of you as well.
My son.
You and your son.
He took care of me just fine, but we didn't have enough money for our son.
Well, doesn't the military give you an additional allotment because of a dependent?
Yes, ma'am.
So you
It
get a little
doesn't
bit more
matter.
money now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it does.
He doesn't manage money, Your Honor. He would go out and...
So how well do you manage money, Miss Blocker?
I can manage money. I wasn't in charge of the money.
Well, I'm just asking you. You're complaining and saying he doesn't manage money.
Right.
How well do you manage it?
I can manage my money.
And under what circumstances and responsibility have you had to manage money?
My son. I've had to...
Since your child has been born?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Vickery sending the money to you
No,
from the
ma'am.
military?
He ain't sending me
Where's
nothing.
the money? You're getting it from working?
No, ma'am.
So
My
what
dad.
money are you talking about?
I don't have any money.
So you're
right
not
now.
managing any money.
No, but I mean, but while I was pregnant, I had a job.
Neither of you have much experience at managing money.
Ma'am.
You have absolutely none. You've lived off your parents, right?
Yes.
They manage their money well. You just got married. You're just starting to learn to do that together because that's what adulthood is all about. Divorce is not running away. You got a son that's 2 months old that needs both of you. You really can't resolve this?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So you don't want to save this marriage?
No, ma'am, not at all.
You want out?
I want out.
Yes,
Now, I
do.
hope that while you're in the military,
He's
ma'am.
not. He
I'm
went
not-
UA
I'm not
again.
now.
so
They
you're
kicked
out of the
him
military too?
Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like to me that you got an issue with commitment.
He does.
And let me talk.
Sorry.
Sounds to me that you have an issue with commitment and sticking with hard and difficult tasks, that your solution is to run from it.
No, ma'am.
Nah, just listen.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you're out of the military already, you joined, and when you joined, you signed up and said, I'm going to be here a while.
It wasn't because of that. It was because the car tore up and I didn't make it back, so I did go UA.
You know what? That's an excuse.
Yes, ma'am.
That's an excuse. When you are committed to doing something, you find a way to do what you're committed to doing.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
don't run from it. All right?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
would have walked back to the base and been able to say, I was hitchhiking, whatever, but you would have gotten back there when you're committed.
Actually,
so
ma'am.
now what can I do? I hate to see.
I took a Greyhound back as soon as I could.
So what do you want from me?
He has all my bears that my dad sent me from across countries, and he won't give them back. My whole
Your bears and
collection-
your dolls?
Your
Yes,
Honor.
ma'am. That I've been collecting since I was 5 years old, and he won't give them back
Your
to
Honor,
me.
I bought most of those.
Your
Her
Honor,
dad
he
didn't
bought
send
4
her
of 'em.
anything but a doll.
That is not
That is
true,
it.
Andrew. That brown
How do I
bear
know
my
who
dad
bought
gave
them?
me. That brown bear, Dad, you bought
Okay,
that for me?
one
that
bear
that says
and a doll.
How
Christmas
many- did you
97,
say you
bought
bought
that?
most of them?
No, ma'am, he didn't.
Yes,
He's
ma'am.
lying.
Let me hear. But did you buy them? Who did you buy them for?
I won like 4 at the fair.
Who did you buy them for?
And then, did
What's
you say
the
who
question?
who did I buy
That was
them
my
for?
question.
I bought them for her.
All
See,
right.
they're
But then-
The
mine.
ones you won at the fair, what'd you do with them when you won them
Gave
at the
them to
fair?
I gave them to her. But
Every time we
only
broke up,
reason that-
they stayed in my possession. He never asked them back. He only wants them back
you
now
like bears and
to
dolls?
hurt me. No, because
No,
he
Your
wouldn't
Honor,
even
I
let me
went
put them up
and
in the house.
The only reason I gave
The bears and dolls that you didn't even want on the bed? Do you like
That's
them?
right.
Your
That's
Honor,
right.
It was only one doll that I didn't want, and she put it in the middle of the mantle. And the only reason I don't want to give the bears back is because the only reason I gave them to her is because I loved her. And when she took away that, then she don't
How
deserve
did she
them.
take away your love? You were the one who didn't go to her when she was pregnant and having your baby.
I couldn't.
That's right. You
It's
could.
not-
mean you
You
could?
could if you
She
wanted
said-
to.
I
Miss
said-
Blocker, I got this. What do you mean you couldn't?
I said that I would come, and she said that I don't need to come because her dad's going to be in the emergency room with her.
No, ma'am. I did not
so
say
just
that.
because your wife told you that,
No.
it's your baby that's about to be born. So again, if you're committed to your wife and your child, I don't care what she said about her father being there, didn't mean that you couldn't be there as well.
But then-
yes, her father's going to be there with her. Sound like he's always been there for her.
But then that would be
ma'am.
losing responsibility because I'd be losing my job. I just had started it.
That's another excuse, in my opinion, because again, this is your wife and your child that's about to be born. Commitment means I'm gone. I'm gone. I don't have this job. That job you can't let a job mean more to you than.
If you're going to take commitment, you're either taking responsibility or commitment. If I give away responsibility, I'm not going to be able to support the child anyhow.
Sure,
You're
you
not
would have. You would have
supporting
found
the kid
another
now
job.
either.
I mean, it's
You
not.
well,
Your Honor, I would understand if he was paying child support now, but he's not even doing that. He doesn't know his birthday. He doesn't know how much he weighed when he was born, and I told him all of this, and he didn't care enough to remember.
When divorce court returns, the judge renders her verdict. and an update on the case of Katrina Allen versus Carlton Allen.
He stayed with me until we got married. Then we got married, then he left me.
Oh my goodness.
He got his own apartment still.
What?
Divorce Court will be back in session in a moment. Divorce Court is back in the case of Judy Blocker, who says her husband Andrew has never seen their 2-year-old child because he doesn't want to be a father.
I'm telling you what the law is, and I advise you to start sending some support. And you're no longer in the military, but they do put people in jail for not paying support. Now, you're fully aware that that's your child. You have a child. Now, if you're trying to live on, I'm not sure, I suggest, Ms. Blocker, that you and he and the child go down to some blood testing facility in the next week or so you can get rid of that one, all right? Because you know it's your child. But go on, satisfy yourself. But that's not going to be a good excuse for you. Understand? Because the law is you're presumed the father. Now, if she cooperates and you get a blood test, that's fine. But she didn't have to. But you're responsible, so you need to start paying some support. But now the bear and the dog collection, now you just being a little, you know that, don't you? Don't you?
I mean, I'd be glad to send hers back, not the ones that I won.
You don't even collect them.
I don't.
You said that you got them and you gave them to her when you won them at the fair. You say that you bought a couple of them for her.
For her.
The others her father gave to her.
Right.
Now, you trying to be mean and evil.
Yes, ma'am.
Because she's not with you. We don't play that. I want them given to her. You're not going to play that one, all right?
ma'am.
You know you don't like that. You know that would hurt her, though. And you need to make sure that you learn to do the right thing. Because if you do it right, right things happen for you. All right? So I'm going to help you get it started on the right foot. Send the bear and dog collection to Mrs. Blocker within 48 hours after you return home.
That's impossible, ma'am.
Why?
Because the stuff's in Florida.
He left.
After you return home?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
left everything I had in Florida.
I thought, so you're not living there anymore?
No,
No, ma'am.
So you've gone to another state?
Yes, ma'am.
And left all my things.
In storage or where?
Yes, ma'am. They're in storage right now.
And you live in another state and you have a job?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're not even with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now
But
you
he
know
wants-
you being evil.
No, ma'am.
Yes, because he
The
doesn't
items
even
aren't
want
even
them.
with you. You moved to another state. You don't like them. You got them in storage somewhere, and she could have them and look at them and enjoy them. And you could have sent them to her rather than store them and pay money for storage for something you don't even like.
I don't pay any money for storage.
Then good. Get back there, contact somebody, send somebody a key to go to your storage facility to box them up and get them to her. I'll give you an additional 24 hours. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't care. Send a key to somebody to the storage facility. They don't care who goes in there as long as they have a key. Let them box them up, send them the money to pay for it, and get them to her. 72 hours. You understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
Court's adjourned.
Thank you.
All rise.
When Divorce Court returns, an update on the case of Katrina Allen versus Carlton Allen.
Why did he want to divorce from me? And I'm a good woman.
Why would I want to stay there? And her mother always talking junk to me every day.
Closed captioning for Divorce Court provided by. If you would like to have the judge hear your case in Divorce Court, call us toll-free at 1-877-311-2222 or email us at www.divorcecourttv.com. And now for an update on a previous case in Divorce Court. Katrina Allen said she planned to spend the rest of her life with Carlton, but he walked out on her after only 4 months of marriage.
He stayed with me until we got married. Then we got married, then he left me.
Oh, my goodness.
He got his own apartment still.
What?
Carlton said Katrina's mother drove him
The
away.
day you said I do, the mother said I'm in.
Right.
Well, how did your mother figure into this?
My mom, she thinks that Carlton is not a good provider.
Why would I want to stay there? And her mother always talking junk to me every day.
That sounds like one of those real flimsy excuses to me.
That's a cop-out.
I want a divorce.
Why did he want to divorce from me? And I'm a good woman.
Carlton said he spent over $400 for rent on his apartment, and he wanted Katrina to pay him the money back. But after hearing the evidence, the judge decided that Carlton owed Katrina money and ordered him to pay her more than $200. Katrina says she wants to start dating again, but first plans to move to another neighborhood so that her mother won't be able to interfere in her love life. Carlton says he plans to move to another city and hopes the 150-mile distance will keep Katrina and her mother out of his life for good.
I plan on passing all my collections down to my son, except my dolls. If I ever have a girl, I plan on passing the dolls down to her.
If the paternity test does prove that I'm the father, then yeah, I'll be glad to spend time with him.
I've offered to let him come and see him, and he just won't take me up on my offer. Andrew, I'm sorry things turned out this way, but he was just despiteful through our whole marriage, and I got what was mine.